for centuries. The Roman Empire was the undisputed master of the known world. Its legions carved out an empire, but its true strength lay in a less celebrated, yet equally vital foundation, its economy. At the heart of this economic miracle was the silver denarius, a coin trusted across continents, a symbol of Rome's stability and wealth. Its value was consistent, backed by a vast treasury and a thriving trade network. From Britain to Egypt, Roman coins facilitated commerce, paid soldiers, and funded the very infrastructure that held the empire together. Taxes flowed, trade flourished, and the silver denarius was its unwavering backbone. But even in its golden age, the seeds of destruction were being sown. The empire's vastness itself became its greatest weakness, demanding resources faster than they could be acquired. Welcome to the Prime Archive. The first crack wasn't a barbarian invasion, but a quiet, insidious decision made by emperors desperate for cash. To fund ever-growing armies, lavish building projects, and imperial largesse, they began to clip their coins, gradually reducing the precious metal content. Initially, it was subtle. But as the empire faced constant warfare and internal strife, the debasement accelerated. The pure silver denarius became a shadow of its former self, increasingly filled with cheaper copper. The metal content, once over 90%, plummeted, sometimes to less than 5%. This wasn't just a technical change, it was a betrayal of trust. Merchants, soldiers, and citizens saw their money lose value before their eyes. The inevitable consequence was hyperinflation. Prices for basic goods skyrocketed, often overnight. What once cost 1 denarius soon cost 10, then 100, then 1,000. This economic instability ripped through the social fabric. Farmers struggled to sell their produce at a fair price, merchants refused to accept government coinage, and soldiers, whose loyalty was tied to their pay, grew restless. The military, the very backbone of Roman power, became a drain rather than a strength, constantly demanding more pay, which in turn led to further debasement in a vicious, self-destructive cycle. The intricate web of trade that had once bound the empire together began to unravel. People reverted to barter, local economies isolated themselves, and the grand system of Roman commerce collapsed under the weight of its own worthless currency. The faith in Rome's economy, once unshakable, had evaporated. The economic crisis reshaped Roman society in fundamental ways. The wealthy, possessing land and tangible assets, could weather the storm. They retreated to vast, self-sufficient estates, effectively becoming feudal lords, disconnected from the imperial center. But for the urban poor and the struggling middle class, inflation was a death sentence. Cities, once vibrant hubs of commerce and culture, withered. Without a functioning currency, trade became impossible, public services crumbled, and populations dwindled. The very infrastructure that defined Rome, its roads, its aqueducts, its public baths, fell into disrepair, for there was no money, no incentive, and no central authority left to maintain them. This internal rot opened the door for external threats. The barbarians, often portrayed as solely responsible for Rome's fall, were simply exploiting a vast, hollowed-out empire. Rome's armies were underpaid, undersupplied, and often more loyal to their immediate commander than to the distant, impoverished emperor. Taxes became nearly impossible to collect in currency, forcing the empire to demand payment in goods, grain, textiles, labor. This archaic system further strangled the money economy, trapping Rome in a downward spiral. The empire was not just broke, it was fundamentally broken. The ultimate fall of the Western Roman Empire in 476 AD was not a sudden collapse, but the culmination of centuries of systemic decline. And at its core, arguably its most fatal wound, was its inability to manage its own wealth, its own currency, and its own economic stability. The story of the Roman rupee, of its slow death by debasement, offers a sobering lesson. It reminds us that unchecked military spending, unsustainable welfare, and the erosion of trust in an economic system can unravel even the mightiest civilizations. From Weimar Germany to modern-day crises, the echoes of Rome's economic missteps can still be heard. The Roman Empire teaches us that the strength of an empire is not solely in its armies or its borders, but in the small, trusted coins exchanged every day, in the confidence of its people in their future, and in the responsible stewardship of its resources. The fall of Rome reminds us, financial stability is not a luxury, but a fundamental pillar upon which all civilization rests. Ignore it at your peril. Thanks for watching the Prime Archive. See you in the next video.